Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Discussion Politics. Today, I'm going to be talking about containment theory and the problems with containment theory. Also, I will be talking about the Truman Doctrine and many of the electoral consequences that are stemming from the Truman Doctrine. And of course, we know that the Truman Doctrine is a form of indoctrination in which President Harry Truman, during the first during the start of the Cold War, is when he made a speech talking about the containment process of communism and having the ability to contain the ideology of communism by way of sending military and economic aid to foreign countries in Europe, especially in order to contain this problem of communism, socialism, Marxism, and many harmful ideologies which were very prevalent, heavily prevalent, and very demonizing in that era of around 1945 to 1950, especially when Harry Truman became president after FDR's death. There was a lot of talk about communism in a lot of countries, especially China. China was the biggest country to fall into communism, and the United States put that responsibility on the president of the United States in order to fix that situation, because in order for a particular situation to change, there has to be a way to facilitate many of the um, capitalist policies which occur in the United States every day, and those were not occurring at the time. So there had to be some catalyst for the event, and that catalyst for these events was President Harry S. Truman, who proposed this Truman Doctrine, and the Truman Doctrine sent military aid to places like Turkey, Sweden, and many other of those countries that required that aid in order to function correctly. Also, sending troops to locations such as North Korea, South Korea, the Korean Peninsula, to be specific, based upon the ideology of communism had very much spread throughout the entire Korean Peninsula. It was his job and his obligation to fix or to eradicate communism entirely. And because of President Harry Truman's efforts to contain communism, we had about 20 years later, after that, 20 years after his presidency, when he left office, we had President Lyndon B. Johnson send troops to Vietnam to contain communism as well. And so he followed in the footsteps of the previous president, which containment theory was the obstacle here in order for a particular movement to occur, because containment theory was the official policy of the United States at that time, and this policy propelled the United States into action on the foreign policy front, which resulted in the consequences for the elections in the future, such as JFK's election and eventually um, Reagan's election. And so these all um, followed each other in terms of the events that occurred throughout the 20th, mid to late 20th century, during the beginning of the Cold War, when President Truman issued the Truman Doctrine, and it's still used today. You know, people still look at that document as a outline for thinking about various issues throughout the world, especially Marxist ideology. Although Marxist ideology has been like minimally reduced. So the main takeaway from the Truman Doctrine is the fact that the Truman Doctrine is still piece of literature from history that allows for a way of explaining the events that had happened from the beginning of the Cold War until about 1985, 1989, around Reagan's presidency, and it gives a very broad outline or a broad view of the entire thought process during that time of the government of the Soviet Union and the United States, but it was mainly the policy of the of the United States to begin that policy and actually act upon it by sending military and uh, economic aid to foreign countries. And that, my friends, is the basic fundamentals of the Truman Doctrine and why it was so important during history. And on top of that, the electoral consequences from the Truman Doctrine and the problems with containment theory are all deeply intertwined in these ideas and these ways of looking at the world. So I thank you all for watching. Have a great day.